All right, let's go in and talk about the Jaguars and the Houston Texans. It can be an interesting divisional battle here. We've got the 1-3 Jaguars versus the 0-4 Texans. Whew. What a slobber knocker we're going to have here. But should be a good game for fantasy. Very high over-under in this one. 64.5 over-under. I believe that's the second highest on the week. Texans are favored to win this one by 6. And, I understand the thought process for why this would be a shootout. I think there's definitely the chance for this one to disappoint. We've seen the Texans underperform in matchups like this in the past, and the Jaguars have also had their misgivings. But with DJ Chark back, Gardner Minshew definitely looked a lot more like himself from the first couple weeks. Week 3 may have just been the anomaly. So the Jaguars coming in here, only really good in terms of fantasy production. They've been good at slowing down receivers. They've been terrible elsewhere. And then on the Texans side, they've been pretty bad against the running backs as well, and average on every other spot. But this should be a pretty high scoring game. I like a lot of the main options here. On the Jaguars side, I think Gardner Minshew is also another good spot start. I know it's going to be really hard to go back to him after he dudded you so badly in week 3. But again, he did really good last week in week 4. And at this point, he's given us 3 good games and 1 bad game. Against the Texans, I do think this will be a higher scoring game. Let's go with Gardner Minshew here. I think he's a good streamer for you. James Robinson has been the absolute best waiver pickup on the entire year, continuing to dominate, still a running back 1, and will continue to be so as long as he's getting the usage and looking the way that he does. He's been tremendous for fantasy football. So you're going to keep rolling out James Robinson. Not many people I bench over him. He's a top 10 play this week. DJ Chark went absolutely nuclear last week after missing the game in week 3 and underperforming in the first 2 weeks. So I think DJ Chark is back in there as an every week starter, especially in this matchup. And then Laviska Shenault, don't be surprised if he goes off this week. He had a really good performance in terms of his actual NFL play last week. He just didn't get into the red zone. So not a lot of people talking about him from a fantasy lens, but could definitely put up good numbers this week. If you see him on the waiver wire, you should pick him up, and I think he's worth a flex this week. Keelan Cole, Tyler Eifert, guys I'm probably going to try to find a better option for. Both could have decent games here, but I'm going to try to move off of them. Chris Thompson was non-existent last week, even in a game where the Jaguars were trailing most of the game. That was pretty much the game script that we were expecting Chris Thompson to play in. But at this point, James Robinson has been the better receiver between the 2 running backs and by far the better running back. So they don't really have any reason to use Chris Thompson at this point. We're going to keep rolling with James Robinson, keep Thompson. I don't even know if you need to roster Thompson at this point. Chris Conley, has had multiple times where he could have scored, but he always seems to find a way to disappoint. So not going to be rolling that dice this week. Not playing either defense in this game. On the Texans side, I'm giving you the confidence again. You can start Deshaun Watson. He came through, had a decent game last week, but I think we'll have a better one this week. David Johnson, if he can't put a good performance against the Jaguars, who are allowing the 6th most points to fantasy running backs, I don't know when you can start him. If you're concerned about starting him this week, you need to be trading him because this is a good week for him. Will Fuller, of course, you're going to throw him out there after another good performance, just praying they can avoid having to leave the game due to any soft tissue injury. Now, Brandon Cooks is dead to me. I've said this many times over the past week, and I'm going to continue with this. If he blows up this week, I do not care. I am ignoring Brandon Cooks going forward. Now, Randall Cobb has been pretty decent. You can probably talk me into playing him depending on your lineup situation. Now, the tight end situation is also interesting here with Jordan Akins dealing with concussion. If he doesn't go, I think Darren Fells actually becomes a really sneaky streaming option if you aren't happy with your tight end position, or if you picked up Robert Tonyan, but now the Packers are on bye, or if you had TJ Hawkinson. Darren Fells becomes a really interesting one week streamer if Akins is out. We know that these guys always get looks in the red zone. They're one of Deshaun Watson's first reads every time they're in the red zone, but you never really know who it's going to be between Akins and Fells. So if one of them is out, it makes the other one a much more appealing option for fantasy. So monitor that situation. If you're in need of a tight end this week, a good spot start would be Darren Fells. Texans defense, again, not starting any defenses here. Kenny Stills, maybe you could talk me into as well, but there's probably better options for you out there. Scored the touchdown last week, but didn't really do much else. Okay, in terms of who I think is going to win, I do think the Texans rally behind Romeo Crennel. Getting rid of Bill O'Brien gives them life, and they end up winning this one 24-21. A little lower scoring than Vegas thinks, but it should still be a very good game for fantasy purposes.